Okay. All right. So we're here to talk about 6 steps to future-proof your B2B marketing for greater ROI in 2023. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful, but there's a lot going on in the world these days, isn't there? And so, probably the most important thing, the thing that we've been talking about in B2B for so long, the buyer journey has changed. With all the things that are happening in the world, the impacts, we're feeling it every single day in the marketing that we're trying to do. And this, simplistic sort of visual comes from research from Salesforce, which has looked at a lot of B2B buyer journeys, and they've said, it used to be 57% and then 75%, and now it's 90% of the buyer journey is complete before the prospects you're trying to reach are reaching out to your website or your sales rep, often just to get a contract or a price. But, I think this stat, whatever number you want to choose, is a little bit simplistic. So we have our friends at Gartner before they were acquired by corporate or corporate executive board before they were acquired by Gartner, who are having a little bit of fun, yet actually sort of realistically representing what the actual B2B buyer journey looks like. And so they looked at hundreds of relatively complex B2B buyer journeys. And what they found was that there were some stages that might be pretty familiar to all of you, problem identification, solution exploration, requirements building, et cetera, et cetera. But what I think is really interesting is, well, a couple of things. Number one is I think most B2B brands think that the buyer journey starts with a search for your product. And what I think we can see here, they use the jobs to be done framework, if you're familiar with that book, is that the buyer journey starts well before someone's looking for an actual product. The other thing that's really interesting, I think, about the research, and it sort of shows up in the blue text here. You don't have to remember all this. You're going to get the slides. The point is that what they found was that the biggest gap was in what the corporate executive board called validation and consensus content. And so it's not the stuff that explains your solution. It's not the stuff that explains the features and even the benefits of your solution. It's the stuff that basically educates the CEO or the CFO or the influencers in the buyer journey that don't care about your product. And so to me, I think that was really interesting. And it really sort of talks about something that I think is going to help us all future-proof our marketing in 2023. And that is the role and the importance of online B2B content. According to McKinsey, don't listen to me, don't believe me, McKinsey, much smarter folks than I am, digital interactions are now 2 to 3 times more important than sales interactions. And as a former salesperson, that kind of breaks my heart. I mean, I got into marketing because I wanted to help salespeople to enable their sales process, to enable them to convert more customers. And what this research indicates is that sales teams need us more than ever before. It's not that we don't need sales or sales isn't important. It's that we need to help enable those early stages and those other members of the buyer journey with B2B content. Our job has gotten more important. And I think future-looking salespeople really understand that, and buyers really understand that. Buyers are open to content from a brand. They want to get educated. They want to look smarter in front of the influencers on the buying committee that they're trying to deal with. And so we see this massive growth in content marketing going to continue. I've said the best days of content marketing are still ahead of us, and this is why. But we all live in this sort of world that's impacted and influenced by consumer trends. And so maybe you're thinking that we need high Michael customer experience personalization type things driven by AI. I'll talk about that in a moment. Like you might get product recommendations from Amazon, or maybe we need to create the kind of entertaining content that you would Netflix and chill with or binge watch. And so we do live in this world, this bubble that is highly influenced by consumer trends. If you're wondering who Charlie D'Amelio is, then no, you don't need to be on TikTok. Maybe that's one of the questions that'll come up. But again, the point is, I understand we're being all influenced by these trends. If you haven't been asleep, then you know that we're all talking about the Chat GPT AI engine that was launched, and influencers were saying that our jobs were going to disappear in the next year because of AI. And so I think we need to talk about how this trend sort of impacts what we do. I saw a quote from somebody that said, AI is creating an existential crisis in marketing. And so I said, really, that's interesting. I mean, I do agree that we have an existential crisis in marketing. I'll get to that in a moment. but it's not because of AI. And so just to kind of prove my point, I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, ChatGPT, can you go get me some leads? And I didn't really get an answer. And if you stick around and if we have time, I'll show you the exact answer it gave me. The point is that AI can't get us leads. AI can't do the job that we need to do. It can't deliver and strategize and identify the kinds of content that our buyers are looking for. It also sort of implies what I call the AI paradox. The more AI that we use, and we certainly look to AI to inform what we do, but the more AI that we use, the more human we need to be in order to actually convert and attract the kind of buyers that we're looking for. So like I said, marketing does have an existential problem. Marketing, you could say, has a marketing problem. If you ask your mom what marketing is, or ask your spouse or a friend, what they think marketing is, you're going to get something like a billboard in Times Square, or a Super Bowl ad, or a logo on the side of a stadium, or is Kim Kardashian walking around with the latest product on her shoulder. That's what most people think marketing is. That is not what marketing is, according to what I learned in college and university. I was told that marketing is a two-way conversation between a customer and a company. A conversation, a two-way conversation. How many people do you know think of marketing in that way? We also need to, I think, differentiate the difference between marketing and content marketing. I think we've come up with this term content marketing just to differentiate ourselves with the kind of marketing that we should have always been creating. That conversation, that two-way dialogue, the stuff people actually want. Most people think marketing is the stuff that no one wants, the stuff that you don't want as a consumer. And so I think we need to sort of identify, and this is probably the most words you'll see on any slides that I have, but the difference between marketing and content marketing is the difference between interruption and attraction. You maybe could call this inbound versus outbound, but I think the differences are a little bit more unique than that. So what is marketing? Most people think it's interruption. It's about us websites, it's product pages, it's brochures, it's emails, it's marketing, it's PR, it's social media campaigns, it's stuff. Somebody asks you to do something and you do it. And that's not what marketing really is supposed to be. So we call this other stuff content marketing, the things that attract audiences to our companies, to our websites, and earn us the right to introduce our sales teams and our salespeople. So it's content largely delivered on our website, but not product content, more like industry news and trends. It's content published with your audience's needs and questions and interests and topics as the top of mind kind of an approach, not the products and the features and the benefits of what we're trying to push. And it's marketing that actually has a measurable return on investment. Wouldn't that be nice? Let's not just future-proof our marketing in 2023, let's future-proof our jobs. The best way to do that is to show a return on investment. And so when I refer to content marketing, these are the things I'm talking about. When I refer to the things that aren't content marketing, those are the things I'm talking about. Interruption versus attraction. All right, so that's just kind of my little setup, and hopefully I set the stage for the 6 things. We promised you 6 practical things, and I want to make sure I give those to you. How do we future-proof our B2B marketing in 2023? Well, the number one, most important thing we all need to learn how to do is to redefine marketing as a strategic, important asset for our organization. And I want you to sort of visualize a conversation that you'll have with your CFO, not with your boss or with the product team or the salespeople, but how could you explain and justify the investment that you're asking your company to make in the marketing activities that you drive? If you're having difficulty, you're uncomfortable, you feel like that might be awkward, then this is the thing we need to focus on. 80% of CEOs are expecting marketing to deliver a return on investment. Because we're not delivering that return, they're unsatisfied with the job that marketers are doing. And if you think they're grumpy and curmudgeonly, like this iStock photo image of a grumpy executive, then you're wrong. No, they're 4 times more unsatisfied with the job that CMOs are doing and the marketing function is doing than the rest of the business. They're 4 times more likely to be unsatisfied with our job. And so what do we have to do? We have to show them the money. If you remember this great quote from Jerry Maguire, how do we do that? This is really why we're here. Why we all exist. It's to bring value, to add revenue, to bring new clients, new customers to our B2B businesses. And so, this is why I come back to content, the importance of content in the B2B world. Websites, B2B websites that publish content in the way that I define content, consistently publishing customer-focused content on a website, on your website, see 6 times higher return on investment, a 3% conversion rate versus less than 1% for websites that don't publish consistently customer-focused content. And so, how do we define content or marketing as a strategic asset? Well, we have to look at the distribution mechanism. The thing that we own is our website. And our website is a financial asset with real value that, if we care and feed for it in the right way, can grow over time. That's the line that you can use with your CFO. Our marketing is a strategic asset with real value that can grow over time. If you invest in us, if you believe in us, don't just have blind faith. Let me show you some examples. And so this is a sort of an amalgamation, a combination, an average of about 24 of our clients. 90% are B2B, a couple of e-commerce clients in there, but 90% of them are B2B. And they're spending not more than $5,000 a month. They're publishing 2 times per week. They're seeing not a linear, but an exponential growth in traffic, an equal growth in the number of leads and conversions that they're getting from their website that's delivering a measurable return on investment in the form of pipeline that converts to sales. This is not funny math. This is actual investment to revenue driven by these marketing activities for these companies. And so marketing is a strategic asset with real value that grows over time. Now, maybe you're investing in paid. Our average client spends about $15,000 a month, or had spent about $15,000 a month on paid. They were seeing on average 0.86 ROI, which is, if you understand the ROI math, that means they were losing 14 cents for every dollar they invested. The funny thing about advertising is that even if you are getting a return on investment, the second you stop spending that money, your investment, your return goes down to 0. Whereas with this approach, content marketing approach to marketing, we see that that return continue over time. It's the evergreen nature of effective content. And so we see 138% year-over-year increases in traffic, 7x return on investment. So we need to future-proof our marketing by defining and proving the value of the ROI of marketing as a strategic asset to the business folks inside our organizations. Okay, this is sort of an important kind of, maybe it's 1B, but step number 2 is we need to define the business case for doing more of the right things that drive measurable return on investment. 10 years ago, almost 12 years ago, I started at SAP, and 97% of the traffic that came to SAP's website was people typing SAP into their search engine. No one was finding us by searching for the things that we sold or the categories of the solutions that we sold. And so, after failing at trying to sell this approach to my marketing colleagues, I actually went to the sales team. And I said, wouldn't you like to show up first for the categories of products that we sell? And so they went and influenced and sort of convinced my peers in marketing to build a platform that drove a measurable return on investment. The business case that we used was imagine if we could reach, engage, convert, and retain buyers that we're not reaching today. Buyers that represent a significant portion of the audience that we're trying to reach. And imagine if we could measure the return on our marketing activities. And so this is a chart of our first year of showing sort of that exponential growth in the traffic that we were able to achieve from zero organic search traffic all the way up to nearly 1 million visitors on our website. We were able to show return on investment. This is kind of the math that went into my book, The Content Formula, which I'm not pushing. You don't need to read it. If you stick around, I'll send you a free PDF link to that book at the end of the presentation. This is what we spent: $100,000 in the first year, largely on infrastructure, a few part-time people to help manage the content. We were relying on experts and internal subject matter experts to help us create the content. $790,000 in ROI. And so a 7x return on investment in what we did. And so, after high-fiving myself, I, committed myself to trying to help the rest of the B2B world understand how to create a return on investment with marketing by really starting to learn how to build the business case. Reach, engage, convert, and retain, the 4 objectives of marketing. Well, let's reach, engage, convert, and retain buyers we've not reached before. Well, how do we do that? Well, it's actually pretty easy. We live in this digital world where the keywords, the questions that our audience is asking, we can understand what those are. There are tools like SEMrush and Keyword Finder and some other tools that I'll show you here in a second that will help you understand what questions your audience is asking. We can figure out what content they're engaging with using some tools I'll show you here in a second. You can just Google some of the keywords and you can see what others are creating, and you can figure out what is the gap, what is the plan that you need to create. In B2B, we know how to test conversion paths, and we can start to figure out, once we reach and engage the right audience, we can start to figure out the right way to convert them. And then my favorite one is retention. Buyers or clients' revenue, that is new customers that are acquired through this approach, spend 3 times more and stay 4 times longer. They have a higher lifetime value than those that are sought through direct sales or interruption-based marketing. And so not only are we acquiring new customers, we're acquiring new customers that stay and spend more. That's the business case for doing this kind of marketing. And we can measure it. Why you do it is equal to how we measure what we're going to do. And so we can measure content marketing with reach, engage, convert, and retain by looking at organic search traffic, by looking at newsletter subscribers, leads, and then retention rate, cross-sell, upsell, or lifetime value. And so again, it's a business value. We can measure that value. We need to build the business case to do the right things. And then that provides a measurement framework for what we're doing. So those are 2 of the 6 steps. This is, I think, the most important thing. It's like, if you have a resolution for 2023 to lose weight, well, you can't just not eat for 3 days and lose all the weight that you want. No, you've got to implement a change that you follow through with every single day. If you want to go run a marathon, you can't decide tomorrow to go run, what is it, 22, 23? I don't even know how many miles it is. It's a lot of miles, right? And so what's really interesting about marathon training is if you simply add 1 mile to your training program each or every other week, you're up to the 26 miles I think that you need to get to in just 1 year. You just need to add 1 mile every other week. And so content marketing is the same thing. We need to think about consistently doing the kinds of things that our customers are looking for. And so this is great research that came from HubSpot a few years ago. We've appended to some of that research using our own client base that showed that when we move from either not at all to very infrequent to a couple times a year, maybe a few random aspects of publishing during the month, to a consistent, okay, let's do once a week, let's do twice a week, let's maybe do 3 or 4 times a week, and gosh, maybe we have a ton of writers and subject matter experts that want to contribute. Maybe we can even get to a daily publishing schedule. What impact does that have on traffic and leads? You can see here, it's a very, very highly visual increase in the amount of traffic and leads that we can get by simply moving to a more consistent publishing schedule. And so if you're going to publish 4 articles in a month, do it once a week. Don't publish them all on the same day. If you're going to publish 8 articles in a month, don't do 4 1 week and 4 in another week. Do 2 articles per week for the entire month. The consistency of publishing every single week is the kind of thing that drives. You're setting an appointment with your customers. You're showing Google that you have a heartbeat that's frequent and regular and consistent. And those are the kinds of things that folks are looking for. This is what we do, and I'm not here to brag, but we're a team of 4 people. I have 3 employees besides me. We write and share all of our content ourselves. We follow our own sort of process. We rank number 1 for hundreds of keywords. We get nearly 1 million visitors a year and gain almost all, not all, but almost all of our new customers through the organic content that we publish. This is an SEMrush report that shows you that we rank for 27,000 keywords. We're a 4-person company that didn't exist 7 years ago. And so if you think you're too small, if you think your team is too overwhelmed, you can do this too. We rank number 1 for content marketing trends, right above On24, which I happen to know through a friend in the industry, spends about $8,000 a month to have this ad ahead of it cost me 3 hours to write this article. So $8,000 a month or 3 hours, which do you think is a better investment? And we can show this kind of a return on hundreds of keywords where we rank number 1, on tens of thousands of keywords where we rank on the first couple of pages. Okay, so consistency is super important. But what do we do? What kind of content do we create? Gosh, you could feel overwhelmed with trying to figure out what do we create. Well, guess what? Your audience will tell you what you can create. You don't have to think that hard. You don't need to be overwhelmed with the kind of content that you have to create. So I think everything in life can be explained in a Venn diagram. And so this is my Venn diagram to try to redefine what marketing really means, because marketing does have a marketing problem. If you ask most people what marketing is, they think it's the guy on the left saying, I'm awesome, buy my stuff. Even good marketers can fall into this trap. It's like our natural instinct, I think, to think that once we, if you do still walk into a building, that once you walk through those doors, that you all of a sudden have to become this promotion robot that says, our company is awesome, you should buy our products. When in fact, it's a Venn diagram, because there's another circle of what your customers want. None of that stuff overlaps with what your audience is actually looking for. No one is looking for a company that just promotes itself and tells you how awesome they are. No one wants to be friends with the person at your next social outing that says, hey, my name is Michael and I'm awesome, right? You don't want to be friends with that guy, just like no one wants to do business with this company. But it's what we think we should do. So we need to kind of resist that natural instinct. We also need to not fall into the trap of creating, gifs of babies and kittens and puppies or TikTok videos, because that doesn't actually drive business for us. No, helpful B2B content falls right in the middle. It's an overlap between what we know and the answers to the questions that our customers are actually asking. Okay, so that's what really helpful B2B content is. The overlap between what we know or the answers that we can deliver to the questions our audience is asking. I'll give you a quick example. GE Healthcare is a client. They sell MRI machines that cost like $1.5 million. They, are lucky to sell, as many as they can. They want to talk about their MRI machines. They use AI to read, MRI scanned images, and they have all these great technology features they want to talk about. But when we did a simple Google autofill of their target audience radiologists, when we pressed the space bar, the #1 question that radiologists are searching for is, how much money should I be making? So we created the radiologist salary guide, the #1 most successful piece of content. They actually sold MRI machines that they could attribute to this piece of content. Okay, so tremendous ROI just by really taking an empathetic approach to their audience and creating, in this case, content that had nothing to do with their product or even what they sell. It had everything to do with a really important question that their audience was asking. So we need to create a flexible annual content plan that sort of delivers on that consistency and answers customer questions. Here's a quick view into some of the tools that I love to use. This is Google Trends. If you don't know how to find Google Trends, just Google Trends. And you can look at, for me, I'm like, do I write about digital marketing or content marketing or social media marketing or email marketing or marketing strategy? Well, Google Trends told me, well, digital marketing is probably the most important thing, and it's growing at a pretty rapid rate. So I talk about digital marketing trends and digital marketing strategy, but I also talk about content marketing trends and email marketing and how to develop a marketing strategy in 2023. But this can tell me really how much weight should I put behind the different topics that I think might be important to my customers. Google autofill, we do content marketing programs and content marketing strategy. And so Google autofill told me to write about templates, examples, and definitions. The #1 highest converting piece of content on my website is a content marketing strategy template article that we wrote a couple of years ago. And we wrote that article just because Google told us to, right? So you don't need to get stressed. You don't need to be overwhelmed with the questions that your audience are asking. You can understand, you can know what those things are. Well, what about what kind of content should I create? Maybe you understand the questions, but I don't know what kind of content I create. Well, you can go to BuzzSumo, and just for a few $100s a year, you can understand all of the most shared content that people are engaging on in social, on the topics that are important, on the questions that are important to your audience. So for me, I looked at content marketing and it said, what the ad industry knows about and how to get 1,000 visitors to your next blog post and how to stand out with LinkedIn content. So BuzzSumo told me what kind of content I should cover when it comes to content marketing. This is my favorite tool. It was just bought by Neil Patel, so you'll see a slightly different visualization. But this tool, if you type in a keyword that's a question your audience is asking, will give you a total editorial plan that you can visualize and show your boss to make it look like you spent hours creating that plan. It's all the who, what, when, where, why, and how questions that your audience is asking relative to a keyword that you know is important to your customers. And again, I'll show you sort of another visual that that's important in our next step with that. And so this is just a quick snapshot from 2020's. I didn't want to show you 2023's because I was afraid people would steal my calendar. But this is just an example of the 2020 article or 2020 calendar that we created that kind of rotates through content marketing and marketing strategy and lead generation and demand generation and marketing strategy and all the different things and the keywords that we identified. Articles based on different things from different folks. You can see we looked at some of the folks in our space that we really are really influenced by. And so we're writing our own take on some of those things. We're also doing some updates and refreshes of our older content. And so again, you should never be worried about filling an annual content plan, just as long as you're focused on actually answering your customer questions. Now, here's a quick little inside tip. I use a tool called SEMrush. And I look at websites that are really influential in the content marketing industry, like Content Marketing Institute and HubSpot, companies we don't compete with, but they create a lot of content around the same stuff that we do. And so I asked myself, how do we compete and create something that we can actually win against Content Marketing and HubSpot, Content Marketing Institute and HubSpot, two huge companies with great domain authority. And you might think that, I use this keyword gap tool, and you might think I might look at volume or difficulty. No, I like to look at CPC. That's cost per click. If you're not familiar, and what this means or it infers is that these are the keywords that are competitive gaps to me in these two other publisher websites that I want to try to win against. And it says these are the terms that are most likely to convert. These are the terms that people spend a lot of money advertising against. And so I use the CPC data to identify and rank the things that I think are most important for us to create content on. So this tool told me to write an article about how to distribute your YouTube content. We wrote an article about how to distribute your YouTube content. I think we wrote number 1 on where to post my video content. We wrote a job, it said to write a job about director of marketing job responsibilities. And in my research, what I found is that the number 2 most miserable job in the world is directors of sales and marketing. The number 1 most miserable job is directors of IT, who are, a large majority of our client base. And so, we're unhappy people. I think this comes back to the definition and the gap in what marketing really should be. But I wrote an article about why directors of marketing are miserable and what we should do instead. And so, this article helped me to rank for a really high CPC, a high conversion keyword on director of marketing job responsibilities or director of marketing job satisfaction. And so I didn't have to think about this. This tool told me exactly what to do. We also write, I think one of the things that, we do want to pay attention to, I think in 2023 is really the visualization, the importance of visualization in content. And so, people always ask us, how do you write the perfect blog post? So of course, we wrote an article about it. We created an infographic about what a page should look like. We created an infographic on a checklist of the perfect blog post. And if you want to click on this link here, you can check out the website, check out the article. My point though is that when we create content, we do need to understand that visual content is super important. If we're answering customer questions, if we look at Google, I Googled future-proof your marketing, and Google doesn't just deliver web pages, it delivers images, it delivers news, it delivers videos, it delivers, all kinds of different visualization, sort of options around an answer to that question. And so, really think about when you're creating content, when you're answering customer questions. We have a customized feature image. We use quick takeaways to kind of break up the text, lots of white space. We use third-party videos all the time. We use at least 2 charts or graphs in every piece of content. Lots of subheadings and bullets, short sentences and paragraphs, really strong visual CTAs. Ann and I both love the Hemingway app or editor, which, will sort of guide you to use some of these shorter sentences, active voice, some of those kind of things. And so, think about visualization and visual answers to the customer questions that they're asking. All right, so we're 4 out of the 6 pathway through our 6 steps to future-proofing your marketing. Step number 5 is, in the B2B world, the biggest difference I think with consumer marketing is that our buyers are going through a journey, and there's multiple buyers involved in that buyer journey. And so it's not enough to be consistent. It's not enough to answer their questions. We have to actually think, how do we map content to the buyer journey? I talked about using Answer the Public, which shows you all the who, what, when, where, why, and how questions. But what's really interesting is if you follow the data, this is something that we were super successful with at SAP. If you follow the data, what you find is that the people that ask the what and the why questions, there's 100 times more of them than the people that are asking where, who, and how much. And where, who, and how much is what most people create content around. You're creating content for that one buyer who's ready to buy right now, and they already know who you are. Well, what about the 100 people that are just starting their buyer journey? Or they're not your direct contact, but they're the influencers, they're the CFOs, they're the users of maybe your product. And they don't really understand what the heck it is you're talking about. So they're going to go on and they're say, what is big data? What is artificial intelligence? And so those are the kinds of content that are often the biggest gap. If you remember that crazy chart from Corporate Executive Board, now Gartner, all of the validation and consensus pieces of content or questions that are being asked in the buyer journey by the 11 to 12 people that are involved in every B2B buyer journey. And so that's often the biggest gap. So if we map content to the buyer journey in a scientific data-driven way, what you'll find is that the keyword volume of the what and the why questions is 100 times higher than the keyword volume of the long tail product-specific questions. The keyword volume of the how do I do this thing is often 10 times higher than the people that are ready to buy. And so mapping content to the buyer journey isn't necessarily about answering the right questions. It's about answering the right questions in the right sort of weighting by thinking about, am I talking to the largest group of people who really need help so that they can move to the next step in their buyer journey? And the brands that do create that content, we're the ones that influence those buyers as they take their next step in their buyer journey. So answer the right questions. Here's another way to visualize that, is there are different content types that are relevant to each stage of the buyer journey. So I talked about visualizations and the importance of being visual in our content. But it's also important to think that, some things are more relevant than others at certain stages. So, fun social posts and, maybe you do some memes and you show some personality, God forbid. I remember I had a boss at one point at SAP who said, we don't do funny. Well, you know what? We're people and, we should not take ourselves so seriously sometimes. So I do think it's okay to have some fun on social because you're probably talking to people that just want to engage with another human being, even though we're involved in a very, very serious, journey to understand, how to solve a problem. And so, educational articles, fun social content, maybe podcasts run by some of your subject matter experts. Short videos do really well in the top of the funnel. As we get into the middle stages of the buyer journey, and this is something that I think B2B people are really good at doing, white papers, webinars, how-to guides, ultimate guides, those kind of things. But thinking about doing them consistently, map to customer questions, map to the buyer journey, that's often a gap. Or how do we attract people to those assets that we've spent a lot of money to create is often a gap. Longer form videos, events and newsletters, again, things that we're good at doing, I think, in B2B. All of these things exist on the right-hand side to drive people to the product content that we've created. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do product marketing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do advertising or that we shouldn't talk about the things that we do and the things that we sell. The problem is that we have to bring and attract and earn an audience to come and check out those pieces of content. We've got to drive audiences from education to product. And that's really the goal of the right kind of marketing, the measurable kind of marketing, the kind of marketing that delivers a return on investment. The largest way that we do this is with email subscribers. I think I said something like 80–90% of our new clients come from our own content marketing efforts, but most of them don't convert from a blog article. Most of them, they subscribe to our newsletter, and then they get a series of 9 email touches. The first one is, hi, I'm Michael. I have 4 kids and they ask lots of questions. Do you have any questions for me? And then the second one is, hey, we sell content marketing programs. Here's a little more info about them. Are you interested? And the third one is, here's our top content from 2022. So, we kind of alternate back and forth between some light selling and some personality and some education. Most of our conversions come from the nurturing process. Okay. And then my final tip on this step is, if we're going to map content to the buyer journey, we want to drive people from one stage to the next but how do you do that? There's no, I didn't get a course in college on how do you move people from the awareness to the consideration stage in marketing, right? This is something we have to learn out in the real world. And I got this tip. I have to give credit to my friend Andy Crestadina. If you're not familiar with them, with him or the folks at Orbit Media, one of the best B2B web design agencies you could ever find, and also the nicest guy you'll ever meet. But he shared this with me in the very first presentation I ever saw him give. Most people don't do this. It's a content hack. Take your high traffic pages and link them to your high conversion pages. On pages, article pages that convert, link them to high traffic pages so that you can do what that earlier visual 2 slides back can, tried to sort of promise, that we take people from the early stage to the middle stage to the late stage. So just, make sure you understand, what are the high traffic pages? What are the high converting pages? And are we linking the two of them together? Just a great tip from my good friend, Andy. Okay, and then finally, we have lots of options in how to distribute our content. I think that there's a huge misunderstanding. It goes back to this sort of, marketing has a marketing problem. Most people think marketing is ads. Most people think the best way to distribute marketing is through advertising. And again, I'm not here to say that advertising is bad or social media isn't effective. The simple fact is, though, that the large majority of traffic to our websites, the large majority of leads that we get in B2B come from organic, inbound, direct traffic. People that have found us through the Google searches that they're doing, or because someone else shared a piece of content, we saw it and we direct linked back to your website because of that piece of content. Only 6% of the traffic to most B2B websites comes from paid. Social delivers less than 5%. And so again, I'm not saying you shouldn't do paid or you shouldn't do social. Those two things combined are going to account for about 11% of the traffic and the leads that we get. But really, are you focusing 80%, 90% of your effort and your distribution on making sure that your content is search worthy, is rankable content, it's share worthy, it's something that people are willing to organically share on their own? And so when we think about distribution, we really need to think about what are the most effective ways to get our content shared organically. And so this is my last tip I want to share with you, is something we found super, super effective at SAP and with all of our clients, is to use your existing employees. Think of them as an asset, a distribution channel to reach new customers, to reach their friends' friends, to influence the buying journey, to attract new customers by creating the kind of content that they're willing to share. At SAP, I love to say that our first 50 newsletter subscribers were our own salespeople, because they found the content valuable and they started sharing it organically on LinkedIn and they started generating leads. And they came back to us and said, hey, this topic performed well and this topic didn't. And so we started getting great insights from them based on what they wanted to see, based on what they saw was converting. This is just a quick stat from Edelman. Over 74% of people find posts from other people more persuasive than posts from brands. So, I'm not saying you shouldn't spend time on your branded social channels. I'm just saying that you're going to be much more effective if you spend a little bit of time trying to encourage your employees to share, maybe even create and share some of the content on your website. Employee sharing generates 10 times higher click-through rates than any paid media, according to Talent Connect. We share lots of stuff on social. We don't spend a lot of time on it, but we share on Facebook once or twice a day, Twitter several times per day, almost once an hour, LinkedIn once a day. I don't really do Instagram, but I know some B2B brands are. But the way that we fill this funnel is with our own employees. And so you'll see Haley, you'll see Gianna, you'll see Aaron, you'll see Lauren. The only folks on my team are all out there sharing every piece of content that we generate. Okay. So that's me talking for 40 minutes. I said we'd go, I think 40, 45. So hopefully we have lots of time for question. I did want to share this free gift. So like I said, I'm not here to sell the content formula. You can download this. Here's a free PDF. It's bit.ly/TCF -PDF. It is caps and case sensitive. So make sure that you type that in correctly. I also want to share, just before we get to questions, the answer that ChatGPT gave to, hey, can you go get me some leads? And it said, oh, I can certainly help you generate leads. So I was really excited. And it said, we can help you by providing you with a list of potential leads based on specific criteria. However, I am just a language model. I don't have the ability to access or gather external information or generate leads on my own. So I said, okay, well, you said you could generate leads by providing a list of potential leads based on specific criteria. And so I said, please generate leads for me based on companies that need content marketing services. And it said, nope, sorry, again, I'm just a language model. I don't have the ability to access external information or gather leads for you. So here's a list of 6 things that, I think any one of us could have come up with on our own in order to generate leads. And so if you're worried about content, if you're worried about AI taking our jobs in 2023 or even 2033, I think we're going to be just fine. If you follow these 6 steps, I think we can future-proof our marketing. I'm not saying we shouldn't use AI to help us along the way. All right, so I'm going to come back to hand it over to you, George, and thank you for listening so far. I do love you guys for that, but I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Michael, everybody wants to know the link, the bit.ly link again. What is that? It's
oh yeah. Yeah, sure. Can you still see my screen?
Not your screen, but maybe even if we can copy that and put it in the chat for everybody, that would be helpful as well. But wow, first of all, great presentation while you're doing that. Attendees, if you have burning questions for Michael, now is the time. We do have about 3-ish minutes or so, so we'll get to as many as we can, but use that Q&A button to get them in, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So with the first question here, this individual is, I think it's Mike. Yep. Mike is focused on a few industries. What is the best tool to determine relevant issues and topics to write articles on?
Yeah. So like I said, I shared a few tools that I like to use. Number one, if you're looking at targeting a few specific industries, think about the persona of the folks that you're trying to target in those industries. Go to Google and just do Google autofill, like GE targeting radiologist, typed radiologist space. You'll find most people are interested in their salary, where they should live, what training they should be getting, what are the biggest trends in the industry. Those kinds of things come up. I think Google autofill is the easiest one. If you're looking for, sort of mid-level expertise area, BuzzSumo and Answer the Public. Answer the Public is totally free. And then I think for advanced, you can go use a tool like SEMrush, which has a couple $100 a month of licensing fees, or, reach out to, folks like me. And, this is kind of what we do for a living.
Yep. Absolutely love it. And then Jody asked, what was the name of your colleague / web designer, your friend versus colleague? But I want to give Andy a shout out again.
Yeah, please. Thank you for that. Andy Crestadina. I'll type his name in the chat. I have to give him a shout out in every presentation I do, because that tip is so great. I had a speaker coach tell me you don't need to refer to other people's intelligence. And I'm like, no, this guy, he deserves the shout out. So it's Andy Crestadina at Orbit Media. He's a Chicago-based web design firm.
Yeah, he does deserve a shout out. As a matter of fact, he was on the Marketing Profs podcast. We did an episode on collaborative content, which, by the way, Michael, by sharing his name, you're being collaborative while we're creating content. It's meta. I swear to God. All right. So here's the thing. April, she paid attention. She paid attention because she noticed that some of your data points might have been a little bit older in some of those slides. I immediately wanted to jump through the screen and actually answer this, because I know how I would answer it. I'm super curious to see how you will. But April said your data points are from 2013 and 2014. Marketing has changed so much since then. Do you think you would have the same results? There's a key point to the question right there. Now, as you did almost 10 years ago. Michael, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I mean, most of the data points are relatively more recent. But I will say there's one research, the chart that shows the percentage contribution for paid and social. So we have a couple dozen clients, and we have access to their data, but I can't share that data. What I found is that all of the data that I've shared is directionally correct, based on the anecdotes of 26 different companies that we have access to their data. If anything, I've understated the importance of the point. So for example, social media drives, I said 5% because the HubSpot data, the chart that I showed, I think was from 2015. It's actually 2% for our 27 clients. So I'm actually overstating the importance of social media by saying it's not as important as most people think. For our clients, 90% of which are B2B, the amount of traffic and leads they're getting, especially leads from paid, is significantly less than 6%, which that data showed. So again, I left some old data in there, knowing that the more recent data is actually probably more emphatically, helping to state the point. I just couldn't find a more recent example. So I think, I appreciate the question because I'm sure other people are asking it. I don't think there's any data points in here that would, sort of be updated and have you draw a different conclusion.
Yeah, listen, everything we talked about still works, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Michael, for an amazing presentation.